of She's Crafty's mini paper pad class. I just showed you the sketch that we're using for week 8, and the kit that I've put together is my Scrapbooking Cards Today sampler kit from February. So I basically just am using that whole kit the way it came as the kit for these 2 weeks. So I've already done one layout, and this is going to be my second. So the background paper was pulled out of the Hello Love 12 by 12 paper pad, and then I'm just going to use the papers from the kit, my little mini papers from the kit. This stencil also came in the kit, so I thought I would go ahead and give it a try and use that. So there's sort of that circular element in the sketch, and that's basically what I'm creating with this stencil. I probably just could have filled the whole thing with hearts, kind of used the stencil as a square and then just filled in spaces around it to kind of turn it into a circle. But you saw me there just kind of using one little corner of the stencil and going around the paper and kind of creating this kind of wonky heart, which I'm totally okay with because it's more just to give the impression that there's a circle there. I said heart, I meant circle. It's more just to give the impression of a circle being there than to actually look like a real circle. I just kind of wanted that element to be represented. And I'm going to follow the sketch pretty closely. I'm going to have the 3 sections that you see in the sketch. I'm going to try to do essentially the same layering with it. So really the challenge for me is just working with having only those 6 by 6 papers. If you were working with 12 by 12 pieces, then you have a little bit more freedom to kind of adjust the section, the 2 sections up at the top. One kind of goes 3/4 of the way across the page, and then the other one just kind of fills in that last quarter. But when you're only working with 6 by 6 papers, you either have to find a way to hide a little gap where you've kind of cut a paper in half and pulled it apart, or you have to piece together a couple of strips of the paper. So there's a bit of a challenge there with trying to make that exact layout work for you in those same dimensions. And what I'm going to do is just work within my 6 by 6. So the other challenge for me was working with the sampler pack means I only have one piece of each paper. So if I was working with a paper pad, a lot of times you have multiple pieces of the same pattern, and I could have probably kind of pieced together the papers and filled in that gap a little bit that you see. But I decided to just stick to the papers that I have and kind of stick with the dimensions that I have. So I'm cutting my pictures down to be a lot smaller because my little layered sections are a lot smaller, and I'm just going to kind of work within there. And then where my title is, I actually have enough space to kind of create a 4th little cluster, and that kind of fills in some of that space. And the collection that I'm working with is from Pinkfresh Studio. It's their kind of COVID release, I guess you could say. So I did think at first that I was going to maybe try to use some of the Valentine's stuff that came with the sampler pack, but I just really like the colors from this collection. It's so fun. I should probably try to find a few more pieces of it somewhere, or get the entire collection, because I like the theme of just, enjoying your time as a family and being home. And it definitely applies to more than just being stuck at home during this pandemic. There's a little bit of cooking themes and gaming and just all those things that we've been doing since we've been home. But a lot of us do those things anyways, so definitely you can use it for just general layouts that you might be doing that have nothing to do with COVID or the pandemic. And the colors, again, are just so pretty. That's such a standout feature of Pinkfresh collections, is that they just have a beautiful color palette to them. So I've got my bottom cluster. I kind of decided to work on my bottom cluster first because I was using all the little scraps that I have. Definitely you will notice when I'm working with 6x6 pieces of paper, especially if it's the last piece or I only have that one pattern, I like to try to stretch it as far as possible. So even if I don't have a specific plan to, need to use the same pattern in multiple places on the layout, I will still usually gut as much of it as I can, because you just never know where you might need to add a little touch here or there, or need to play around with it a little bit. And at the end of the day, if you have a bunch of little scraps left over, that's okay. Or you can always, punch a bunch of hearts or stars or that kind of thing and just use them around the layout. So definitely that is a tip that I have, is if you can kind of be a little bit conservative about your papers until you know how much you want to use, that gives you a little bit more stretch and a little bit more flexibility. So even here where I'm cutting these banners, I didn't want to chop up huge chunks of those two little scraps that are left over, because I wasn't sure if somewhere down the line I might want one of those little chunks. And I guess if you're using a sketch, you have a bit more of an idea, but it's one of those things where you use the sketch and, even when you're following it pretty closely like I am, you still have your own little touches, your own little details that you're going to add, or little differences just because of the stash that you're using. So I just like to give myself that little bit of flexibility just in case. And I do use quite a bit of scraps on this one. I even use that teeny tiny sliver down at the bottom just to pull in some of that kind of lilac purpley color. And I use a couple of just little bits you'll see when I make my title, just to have all of the colors represented in each of my clusters. So if you had two pieces or multiple pieces of the same pattern, you probably don't have to be quite as stingy as I am, or quite as conservative as I am. But if you only have that one piece of that pattern, then I definitely try to stretch it as much as possible, just to make sure that when my layout is all done, I feel like I have been able to use that paper to the maximum. So here's where my title is going to go. There's that really fun circle paper, and I thought that the one sort of prominent circle that's on the piece that I got, it says "There's no place I'd rather be." It's perfect for kind of describing what my pictures are about. So I'm going to use that as part of my title, and then I'm also going to use the puffy sticker that I have. I got just a little section. I think were there 3 little puffy stickers or 4 little puffy stickers on there. It says indoorsy type, and so I thought that kind of worked good, because obviously we were all kind of stuck indoors, and the pandemic really gave our family anyways an opportunity to just relax a little. We didn't have to run around and do as much stuff. We still went for walks and hikes and to the dog park and things like that, but I think the kids kind of enjoyed being able to wake up a little later in the mornings and keep their pajama pants on while they went to school and all that kind of stuff. So I just thought that that would be a good title for this. My pictures are showing how all 3 of the kids kind of found their own little comfortable areas of the house to do schoolwork and be on the computer. And so it definitely is showing more of their indoorsy side. So this little cluster I'm kind of creating just to bulk up the title and fill in a little bit of that gap, just because I think in the original sketch, the title was kind of meant to take up quite a lot of space right there. And so I needed to kind of give it the proper weight, especially because my one cluster where the 2 pictures are is a little bit smaller. So that's where it kind of came in handy that I was cutting little pieces of the paper out and gutting pieces when I could, and using every little tiny scrap, because that's where I was fitting in every paper. Every little element is represented in that cluster, just to make everything feel cohesive and not make that feel like it's just kind of stuck floating there all by itself. And I put those hearts down there because I cleaned off my stencil by putting the hearts down there, but I also knew ahead of time, just because I'm following the sketch, that I would probably be putting some sort of title or some journaling or something along there. So that kind of gave a little shelf for that title section anyways. And then just tucking in all those bits and pieces really ties everything together. And now for embellishments, I did add the rose that came with the embellishments from the sampler pack, and that little pink house is from another one of the puffy stickers. Down at the bottom, I used a little ephemera piece that's a green heart. So those all came with the sampler pack, but there weren't many embellishments. Oh, also the stickers, sorry, that I put all the way around the circle. I just kind of felt like I wanted to bring some color into there and bulk that circle up a little bit, just make it a little bit more of a feature because there is such an awkward gap in between the two clusters. So those are just little stickers from the sticker sheet. And I love Pinkfresh's sticker sheets because they're like a thick cardstock sticker. They're so gorgeous. And so it says things like pajama day and that kind of stuff. No place I'd rather be, that kind of stuff. Just relating to being home. So I bulked up that circle, and then I went into my Maggie Holmes sticker book. It happened to be out from a previous layout, and just pulled out some gold hearts, and I put a little yellow rose beside my title because there was some yellow in the other clusters and there wasn't a lot of yellow in that particular cluster, so I just wanted to have that color represented. And I added a few little words in there and some banners, and then I took the enamel dots that came in the sampler pack and I put them around the circle as well, and then some sequins, and that is it. That's my layout for this week. Links to everybody who is attending class today are down below, so you can go and check that out. And be sure to also stop by the Facebook group that Shannon created for way more inspiration, and you can even post your own layouts there as well. I will also put the Scrapbooking Cards Today link down below so you can check out their samplers. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And until next week, happy scrapping. Bye.